Hello, welcome back to another video where I'm going to make some predictions for this weekend's fight night card from Canada. Definitely a bit of a fizzer of a card, not the best names. Struggling to pick out any fights I think of any real impact. I'll try and find a few of the ones that I think you guys might enjoy. I know some of the names have sort of gone over my head. I don't really recognise a lot of these guys, but it's in Canada, so they're gonna bring out a few more of the unknown sort of Canadian fighters from the regional scene to give them a pump up. So good luck to all the Canadians on the card, and hopefully there's some entertaining fights. I think there'll be a few sleeper fights on this card. Won't go into great detail, guys, because some of these guys I don't really know, making UFC debuts and stuff like that. So the first fight I think will be a pretty good matchup is going to be Tanner Boser versus Gokhan Sarakam. Sarakam making his debut. Tanner Boser, I've seen him fight a few times. He's sort of strikes as the kind of guy that's tough as nails. But Turkish guys are really tough too. So I think this will be a bit of a back and forth, bit of a slobber knocker. Heavyweight fight, so you know they're going to crack. But I'm leaning towards probably Tanner Boser in this one. I think he's just got a little bit more experience. I mean, it's hard to know when you haven't seen when a guy's making his debut. You haven't seen a lot of him. How's he going to react? He's going to have the Canadians on his side. I think they'll hype him up. And he just looks like a tough, mean son of a bitch to me, old Tanner Boser. So I think he's going to take a few shots, wear Gokhan's best shots, and come back with some of his own and do some damage. I think this could be a later round KO, possibly a decision. Tanner's never really been that great at knocking people out, in my opinion. He did knock out Ovince St. Preux, so that's a hell of an effort. But yeah, Tanner Boser's record's not the best at all. Very hit and miss. But I think, he's a tough son of a bitch, and I think this Gokhan dude's probably just been walking through people on the regional scene. Wouldn't have faced anywhere near the level of competition that Tanner's faced. So I'm going to go with Tanner Boser. He's a bit of an underdog in this fight. I think, people think the Turkish power is going to get a hold of him. But no, I think Tanner Boser's skill, he's a big guy. I think he's going to probably look to wrestle a little bit, but I think he's going to do most of his best work with his hands. And I think he'll just wear Gokhan's best shots. Wouldn't be surprised if he loses the first round and then starts to get a bit of influence going in the second and third round. I'll go with Tanner Boser KO in round 2, but I could see it going decision. I think he's going to be good with the wrestling. I think if I'm Tanner, I'm going to want to shoot and try and tire old mate out a bit. I feel like, Gokhan won't be the best on the ground, but I can't say that. Like I said, I don't really know this guy very well, so see what happens in that fight. That should be a bit of a back and forth, bit of a barn burner. Next fight I like is Robert Valentin. He was on the Ultimate Fighter there, and he looked pretty high level. I think he did really well on the Ultimate Fighter. I believe he won the Ultimate Fighter, and he looked good. He looked good with his style on that too. Really hard elbows. Was just an entertaining fighter to watch overall. I thought one of the standout performers on that series. He's versing a Canadian, Julien LeBlanc, who's making his UFC debut also. So I think Robert's sort of getting gifted one a little bit here. Again, making his debut, so I don't know a lot about this Julian guy. And Robert Valentin's record has not been fucking the best, that is for sure. Got KO'd by Teba Gautier in his last fight, but that's not much to go off. Teba's knocking everybody out. Torres Finney lost a decision in that fight, and he lost to Ryan Loader by KO in round 2 as well. So he hasn't had the best. I think he's sort of been chucked in a little bit over his head here, Robert Valentin. I think this fight's going to be a little bit more of a level playing field for him. I think Julian's probably done really well on the regional scene, obviously, to make it to the UFC. He's got a few wins, but I think Robert Valentin's going to be a level above. I think it's probably his fight to lose, in my opinion, Robert. But he's been knocked out, and he's been so inconsistent. He's lost his three first fights in the UFC, so I dare say if I'm Robert, I don't want to lose this one. Back's against the wall here. If you lose this, you're probably looking at getting cut. Julien LeBlanc, typical. Sounds like a very typical Canadian name. He's won his last 5 pro MMA fights. So like I said, he's gotten through the regional scene. I don't see this going the distance. I think Robert's going to probably try and knock him out, and hopefully with a big elbow, something entertaining like he did back on the Contender Series, on the Ultimate Fighter. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if young Julian runs into a big elbow, gets rocked. Robert finishes up on the ground. I'm going to go round 2 again in that one, I think, or round 2 or 3, but I'll go round 2. So yeah, definitely gonna see a KO there from either guy. I think if Robert can't get it done, I believe Julian probably will. I feel like Julian, I don't know, so Canadians strike me as pretty good wrestlers. So unless Julian takes him to the ground, I think Robert struggles with the ground. I don't think he's really up to level with the ground yet. Another little fight I just want to touch on quickly. Marcio Barboza versus Dennis Bazooka. Dennis he's been pretty good. He's a pretty entertaining fighter. He's only won his one fight in the UFC against Conor Matthews, so a bit of a no-name there. Lost to Francis Marshall, the Fire Marshal. Mauricio Barboza making his debut. 5'6", he's pretty short, this Barboza dude, but he's Brazilian. I think he's going to be tough as nails. I can see him probably winning by KO in this one. One of his last 4 MMA fights by KO in round 1, Barboza has. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be number 5 here. I think Dennis is pretty tough, but I don't rate him. I don't think he's a very good fighter. I think he's a bit careless, a bit reckless. He tries to make it entertaining, but you got to go out there to try and win the fight. And I think he's just a bit slack. I think his defense isn't up to scratch. So I'm going to go with Mauricio Barboza KO in round 1. I think he'll put a pretty big hurting on young Dennis. So that's it. I mean, I don't know. I've never heard of Mauricio making his debut. Be good to just see how he goes. Could have another young talented prospect. The only thing that worries me is his height. 5'6" is very short. But we'll see how he goes. Another good Brazilian on the card, Thiago Moises. Bit of a mainstay for a while here. Versus Gage Young, a name I don't really recognise. Thiago Moises has been pretty good for a long time. I've always sort of rated him. He subbed Ezekiel Costa. That's a hell of an effort. And he's fought a lot of top guys. He's fought Makachev. He's fought Joel Alvarez, Michael Johnson, Dariush in his debut. So, Benoit Saint Denis. He's fought a hell of a few guys. The only thing that worries me is his last fight. I'm not sure how old he is now. I think he's getting pretty old, Thiago Moises. He got KO'd by Jared Gordon. Now, that fucking worries me. Jared Gordon, I do not think is a very good fighter. And if you're getting KO'd by Jared Gordon, your chin mustn't be very good anymore. Gage Young, I assume he's the younger guy. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC. He's won one of them. One against the Chinaman, Hyper Machete. So I think Thiago Moises with the experience, but I'm not sure. Again, I don't really recall ever seeing this Gage Young guy fight. So I think he probably got lucky with that fight. I think I'm going to go with Thiago Moises by points in this one. I think he just outworks him, probably uses a bit more of experience on the ground. I definitely would, especially, you've subbed someone like Ezekiel Costa. That's a feather in your cap, in my opinion. That's a great win. So, hopefully he takes him down. And I reckon he probably could look for a sub, but I'm going to go with points. I think Thiago Moises by points in this fight. All right, next one, guys. Mandel Nalo versus Jai Black Country Banger Herbert. Now, Jai Herbert has been hit and miss. He's definitely not the best. He drew with Ludovic Klein. He got knocked out. Went decision with Chris Padilla. He's pretty tough. Francisco Trinaldo, I remember that was obviously his debut, but Francisco Trinaldo, I used to love him. He left hook knocked him out, and a bit of a late stoppage in that fight. That was pretty brutal. So Trinaldo give him a nice welcoming to the UFC. He's a big rangy guy, big long kickboxing sort of style. He's from the United Kingdom, so I think he's going to be better than the Canadian in this matchup. I think the Canadian's going to be tougher. I think he will take a bit of punishment, but Mandel, he's never fought in the UFC, making his debut. I know he's on her home turf. I think the boys will hype him up, so I think this will be a decision win for Jai Herbert. I think, rangier guy, using the jabs. Unless Mandel's some wicked grappler, I think Jai's just going to do enough on the outside. He's a bit of an underdog, so obviously people rate this Mandel guy. He's won his 3. Oh no, Jai has lost his last 3 previous UFC main card fights, so that's not great. Okay, and this Mandel Nallo's 17 previous pro MMA fights have failed to go the distance. So that's quite interesting. So he's had quite a bit on the regional scene then, this Mandel. So obviously being the favourite, a lot of the Canadians do recognise him as quite a young prospect. But nah, I'm sticking with Jai Herbert. I think even though he's been knocked out a fair few times, I think he's still got the skill to pull this off. And I think it's going to be a decision. All right, the co-main event, guys. Charles Air Jourdain versus Kyler Phillips. I like Jourdain. I think he's probably one of the better prospects for Canada, in my opinion. He looks good too. I think he's really coming into his own a bit now. Like he's got a lot of the rust out of the way, and he puts on good, entertaining fights. So I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain. Quick KO in this one, I reckon. I think he's looked really good in his last few fights. He's done good. He's gotten some good dash chokes and stuff in his last win. Guillotine choke against Davey Grant. That was a good sub. And a guillotine choke against Victor Henry. So wouldn't be surprised if he tries to pull out a sub here. If Kyler Phillips comes shooting in for a takedown when he's rocked, he locks something up. But I've got a feeling Charles Jourdain's going to win this one by KO. I think he's probably looking for a big flashy KO. Win a bit of extra money, possibly a bonus in this fight. I think this is probably one of the better matchups on the card. Kyler Phillips is pretty good. He's a good wrestler. He's lost his last 2 to Rob Font and Vinicius Oliveira, so that's not too bad. He beat Pedro Munoz. I think that's a pretty good win. Ronnie Barcelos beat him by decision. So he's got some pretty good wins under his belt. But I think Charles Jourdain's a younger guy. Ronnie Barcelos is getting up there. Pedro Munoz is getting up there. And then Rob Font, I think, he's sort of, a little bit out of his prime, bit younger, and he's lost to him. And then he lost to Vinicius Oliveira. So a young guy, Charles Jourdain, going to be putting the pressure on him, going to be hitting him with pretty hard shots. I think Kyler Phillips not going to like it. I do rate Kyler Phillips. I think he's a pretty good fighter, pretty good wrestler, and good all-rounded sort of guy. But Charles Jourdain strikes me as the better fighter. I think he'll probably have no trouble in that matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if he breezes it through to a decision, but I've got a feeling he's going to be able to KO Kyler Phillips. Although I don't think Kyler Phillips has ever been KO'd in UFC. No, he's never been KO'd. So, yeah, maybe we'll go points in that one, actually. Yeah, I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain on points. I think he's going to do enough. He's going to be better on the ground, better with the submission attempts, and better with the hands. So, yeah, Charles Jourdain all the way. Just going to, look too good for young Kyler Phillips. But, yeah, that should be a good, entertaining fight, I reckon. All right, the main event, and definitely the highlight of the whole card, Gilbert Burns versus Mike MALOTT. Mike MALOTT, I don't love him. I think he's sort of, he's got a great record, and I think he's sort of been, picked to get a good run from the UFC. But the only notable win I see on his career is probably Kevin Holland, and I don't think Kevin Holland's that good either. He lost to Neil Magny, and Neil Magny's fucking getting old. And I know he was winning that fight, but he sort of gassed out a bit, and Neil got on top of him, did some fucking good ground and pound in the last. There was fuck all time left. He would have won a decision. So I think that's a big learning curve for Mike MALOTT. I do like him. I think definitely another one of your top prospects from Canada. Has he got enough to beat Gilbert Burns though? Gilbert Burns has been one of the best in welterweight for a long, long time, in my opinion. I was disappointed when he lost to Kamaru Usman. I've always liked Kamaru, and I know they trained together. But I really thought that could have been Gilbert's shot. His one shot he had at winning the title, and I don't think he'll ever get back up to. That was his peak when he dominated Woodley. Even though Woodley was pretty cooked at that point, you weren't getting a better Gilbert Burns than what we got then. And he took it up to Kamaru, in my opinion. He probably won a round in that. Maybe won the first 2 rounds. But anyway, we got a bit of an older Gilbert now, 39 years old. His best years are behind him. He's going to become a bit of a gatekeeper in the division, I believe, now. He's coming off 4 losses in a row, but against top-level competition. You're talking Bilal Muhammad, Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady, Michael Morales. These are all great up-and-coming fighters. So you can't blame him for losing some of them tough fights. I like Gilbert's chances of getting it done here and showing Mike Malott a thing or two. I think he's got the experience, especially with the 5-round fights. He's had, 4 or 5-round main events. So I think his experience will come into play here, and I hope he decides to wrestle. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Malott starts a bit too fast, a bit too wild, and sort of gasses out in the later rounds. But Gilbert's chin at 39, how much is left, eh? If he can't take the punches early, I won't be surprised if Mike Malott knocks him out in rounds 2 or 3. But I'm going to trust Gilbert's chin, going to trust his experience, and he's going to be throwing back. He's not going to be standing there letting fucking Mike Malott tee off on him. I think Mike Malott, he sort of relies on going to the ground. I feel like he is a pretty good wrestler, but I think that's going to be neutralised. You're talking about Gilbert Burns on the ground here. This guy's a fucking BJJ wizard. So I wouldn't expect a submission fight, though. I think they're both going to want to probably keep it standing. But the first person that gets cracked is going to try and shoot. And I think they're going to be very even on the ground. I'll probably give Mike Malott the edge just because he's a bit younger with the hands and the stand-up. But like I said, Gilbert's seen this all before. I think he's going to let the young bloke blow his wad and then come in and fucking, start picking him off at range, hard low kicks. And Gilbert's a bit of a wild man himself. So I wouldn't be surprised if he KOs him in the later rounds. Similar to the Magny fight, Mike Malott gasses out. Gilbert's done his work with the wrestling in rounds 2 or 3. In rounds 4 or 5, he's just teeing off on Mike Malott. And I'd be interested to see if he's still got the power to knock someone out. I think Mike Malott will have a hell of a chin on him. Gilbert could sub him too. I think he's got all the tools in the belt to finish his fight however he wants. But I'm sort of leaning towards a decision. I think Gilbert Burns will win this by decision. So that's my pick for that fight, guys. I think, like I said, it's a bit of a lackluster card. It could be better, but I think those are the fights to watch. And I thank you guys for listening. Thanks for listening, and hope you enjoy the fights.